If you're thinking about making a move to the Austin area with kiddos, or you're looking into the future at resale values, a lot of people really focus in on school district ratings. But what they fail to realize is that really quickly, those actual ISD, bigger ratings tend to stop mattering quite as much pretty quickly when you get down to more of a campus by campus level. That one detail alone can change your purchase price, your commute, and what resale looks like. In this video, I'm breaking down lifestyle and school districts around the greater Austin area so you can really look into the details and figure out where you, your family, and your goals actually fit in. And stick around to the end because I'll cover exactly step by step how I break this down and guide my clients through the process so they can find the details when it comes to schools that actually matter most to a lot of my clients. Here's how this video is going to work. I'm going to break down the Austin area by north, south, east, and west, including some of the suburbs. So for each area, I'm going to cover who the area is best for, what the general lifestyle and vibe is like, what third parties say about the schools. So full disclaimer, all of this data when it comes to school rankings comes from third-party websites like niche.com and Great Schools. And then we'll cover, what that actually does to resale values and what you're going to pay for the house. And another quick disclaimer, Austin school boundaries can be a little bit wonky. So it's really important that whether you work with me or work with a different agent, that you always verify the specific address to figure out exactly what campus that it feeds into, because it's not always as it seems. And that's exactly why I make these videos. My goal is to get my viewers and my clients from I heard to I know so that you can make an informed decision and a smart move. All right, so first we're going to cover Central Austin, and that's going to be, the Barton Hills area, Barton Creek, Zilker, Hyde Park, Brentwood. And if walkability, trails, the music scene, restaurants, the nightlife, just everything that makes Austin Austin is the vibe you're going for, then this area is exactly that. The trade-off here is usually you're paying a higher price for an older home on a smaller lot, with older systems like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and foundations. Now, we can definitely still find some really, really cool modern new builds in this area, but those are typically going to be like teardowns that have been completely rebuilt. So you have your options in this area, but overall you're going to be looking at older homes, higher price point, and a smaller lot. And again, you're paying for it, but this area is just the quintessential Austin that everybody knows. So when it comes to the school systems, AISD gets kind of talked about like it's one thing, when in reality, it's not. It covers a huge footprint and it services close to 75,000 students. So, it really, really varies campus to campus because it's covering such a large area. And within that, you've got, A-rated, really, really top ranking schools. And then you've got some that, aren't necessarily ranked as high by third parties. Again, that's why it's so important to, before you fall in love with a home, find the address, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, or go to the websites where you can find the information and make sure that you're matching that specific address to the actual school campus that it feeds into. In Central Austin, the school pockets that have higher rankings have higher demand and higher price points. But long-term, you're seeing an upside in long-term appreciation, you're buying into the equity, so you're paying for it up front, but you're also kind of protecting your asset by buying into a higher ranking school district. And here's a word of advice, don't fall in love with the vibe, with the area, and especially with an address before you actually confirm, if you're thinking about schools, what school campus that feeds into, because it can be confusing here in Austin. You could think one thing and the reality could be another. So I always make sure and verify things like that with my clients. I'm happy to do the same for you. Now let's move to South Austin. That's going to be areas like Shady Hollow, Circle C, Onion Creek, kind of the South Austin kind of suburban areas, and places like Southpark, Meadows, and Sunset Valley as well. This is where a lot of my relocation clients with families end up landing because it feels a little bit suburban, but you're still very closely connected to the Austin vibe, the scene here, the downtown area. So it's a good option for people that want, a little bit of both. Here you're going to find green belts, hike and bike trails, community pools, and amenity centers. Day-to-day life in South Austin, at least in my opinion, just feels a little bit easier because of that connection from, a little bit far removed, but at the same time, very connected to the city. South Austin just feels a little bit more Austin, so to say. It's more artsy, it's more trendy. The food scene's a little bit more creative. You're going to have music venues and cocktail bars and coffee shops. Not that you can't find those up north, but it definitely feels a lot more Austin than places like Pflugerville or Cedar Park. I'm not saying one's better than the other. It just kind of depends on the vibe and the lifestyle you're going for when you move here. Just like Central Austin, most of the South Austin schools feed into Austin ISD, so you're still looking at this huge school district, which is why it's important to look at a campus by campus level, get a little bit more granular, because some of the South Austin schools rank, around 9 out of of 10 on third-party websites, while some rank much lower. So again, it's why it's so important to break down the details and actually look at the address and the school campus that it feeds into. Now, if this kind of school information plus lifestyle mashup and breakdown is something that is intriguing to you because you're thinking about moving to the Austin area, don't hesitate to click the subscribe button. I release new videos just like this every single week, and I am here to help. That's why I made the channel. All right, so let's head a little bit further south. So the suburbs of Kyle and Buda both feed into Hays County ISD. And if your goal is more space, more bang for your buck, small town vibe, but growing quickly, then this is a great option for a lot of people. In these suburbs, you're gonna find big box conveniences, shopping centers, but again, still that kind of small town vibe. You're gonna have things like Main Street where there's strips of restaurants and maybe even bars and music venues. You're gonna have more family-oriented subdivisions with, master planned communities with amenity centers and big pools, volleyball courts. And again, you're gonna get a lot more house and lot size for your dollar when you compare it to Austin proper. Kyle and Buda are both gonna have kind of a city and town identity all of their own, which is actually kind of unique when it comes to Austin suburbs. I mentioned it earlier, but places like Pflugerville and Cedar Park don't really have a core identity. They're just kind of big neighborhoods in North Austin. Now, in Cedar Park, that's changing because the Bell Center is getting developed, but that's not really gonna be done until about the mid-2030s. But that's a really good future long-term equity play. It's gonna be a mixed-use development area where there's gonna be a lot of walkability. It's gonna kind of give Cedar Park the only thing it's been missing for a long time, which is kind of a cultural hub and a city center. Hays County ISD gets an overall rating of B on niche.com, but it's growing and changing really, really quickly. Some campuses score really, really well on great schools, while others are still kind of catching up. This is 100% another district where you really need to zoom into the campus level. For a lot of my clients, this is where value really comes into play, especially if you're strategic with your work schedule and your commutes and potentially the use of tolls if you have to cross the river. You're still close enough to the city of Austin to take advantage of all the fun stuff that it has to offer, commute to work if you work in Austin, but still far enough removed from the city to where you don't really feel claustrophobic and crowded. And bonus points for anybody that works in Austin and commutes from one of these suburbs, if you can get creative with your work schedule and time it to where you're not on I-35 or Mopac during rush hour traffic. And quick pro tip, the fact that these areas are growing so fast means that traffic and commute times are probably going to change. So what I always recommend with my clients and walk them through is to, simulate your commute at the worst case scenario, during peak times on a weekday, that's 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, 4 to 6 o'clock in the afternoons. If that seems tolerable for you, then Buda or Kyle could be a good option. So let's jump a little bit southwest to Dripping Springs. So here you're in Dripping Springs ISD. The vibe is, hill country views, a lot slower pace of life. Kind of, we call it the Texas chill country, jokingly, but it's just a really, really cool kind of Texas quintessential vibe. You're close enough to Austin, but you also kind of feel like you could be on a farm and ranch at the same time. Overall, Dripping Springs ISD is rated a B on niche.com. On great schools, it has some campuses that are rated an A or an 8 or 9 out of 10. So it's a really, really strong school system. Along with the landscape and the relaxed lifestyle, the schools are a reason that a lot of relocation buyers and a lot of my clients are really drawn to the Dripping Springs area, especially if they're moving with kids. But the secret's kind of been out for quite a few years now, so you're gonna see more competition and higher prices out in Dripping Springs. My tip here, if you're commuting to Austin, is to test your commute at the times that you're actually going to drive it in Google Maps, right? Don't go into Google Maps in the middle of the day on a Saturday and think, oh, that commute seems doable. Put your commute times in during rush hour and make sure that it's something that you're willing to deal with. All right, next we're going to head west directly from the city of Austin to Lake Travis and the Eanes ISD. Eanes ISD is consistently ranked one of the best school systems in all of Texas, and Westlake is also consistently ranked, a 9 or a 10 out of 10 on greatschools.com. That's actually where my wife went to high school, and I got to go to school in Dripping Springs. So we both lucked out with absolutely astonishing views and great schools here in the Austin area while we were growing up. Out in Eanes and Lake Travis ISD, you're gonna see premium homes, premium lots that you're gonna pay a premium for. You've got absolutely fantastic hill country views, great school districts, and again, really, really high demand. These are really sought after properties in the Austin area. Lake Travis ISD in particular has, those really strong schools with that really fun Austin laid-back lake lifestyle. And most of the schools there are gonna score about a 7 to a 9 out of 10 on the third-party ranking websites. So again, really, really good schools, plus you're right next to the lake. One thing to watch out for is the HOAs, the taxes, and the commutes can vary considerably. So always make sure you verify, your address and all of those details, whether on your own or with somebody like me who's here to help. And if you want details like this all in one place, I actually created an Austin area relocation guide. So don't hesitate to text the number on the screen or scan the QR code. I'll send you a free copy of that, and it'll break down things like schools, commute times, the general vibe of different areas, and what the price points look like. All right, moving right along, let's head northwest to Northwest Austin and the Cedar Park area. Now, Cedar Park in Northwest Austin check a lot of boxes for families that are moving here. Leander ISD has a lot of campuses that rank an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on the third-party websites. But the school boundaries can vary considerably here, and they're not always what they seem. I've seen some houses where you have a house right here that feeds into this school campus, and then you've got a house right next door that feeds into a different school campus. So again, always verify those details. If you need guidance on that, I'm always here to help. This area is going to feel a lot more suburban, right? You're going to have big neighborhoods, you're going to have shopping centers and strip malls. It just kind of feels like, especially Cedar Park, has just kind of become a big North Austin neighborhood. Not that that's a bad thing, you're still gonna have parks, you're still gonna have trail systems and all the things that make the outdoor life enjoyable here in the Austin area. It just doesn't necessarily have that keep Austin weird vibe that Central Austin and South Austin are kind of known for. Though, as I mentioned, Cedar Park is getting the Bell District, which is gonna be that mixed use community kind of center area. And again, that's not gonna be ready till 2035-ish, but knowing about that, it could kind of put you in an advantage, because if you want to buy into pre-appreciation and home value, it could be a good move, because that whole area is going to become a lot more connected. It's going to have more of a cultural identity, and it's potentially going to be a lot more walkable here in the next decade or so. These areas tend to have a pretty broad buyer pool, which protects long-term values and equity. And I've helped a lot of clients relocate to this area, and it's getting more and more popular over the years. By the way, if you're new to the channel, my name's Justin Rossi. I am a local Austin native. I'm also a real estate agent here in the Austin area, and I am here to help. So don't hesitate to reach out. I would absolutely love to hear from you. So as we're heading around the map, let's head up north to Pflugerville and Round Rock. Round Rock ISD is really known for its strong education programs. You've got the STEM program, you've got fine arts, and you've got advanced tracks as well. So it keeps it in high demand. And then Pflugerville is a little bit more hit or miss when it comes to school rankings. You've got some really highly rated schools, and then you've got some that are still kind of catching up. Again, that's why it's so important, I'll say it again, to actually go down to the campus by campus level and not just look at the independent school district as a whole. Pflugerville is basically just a North Austin suburb at this point. The city has just kind of grown into it and absorbed Pflugerville. I had family that bought out there when it was just farmland, and it's completely unrecognizable now. It's pretty much indistinguishable from Austin. You don't even realize you've left Austin when you get into Pflugerville at this point. And one of my favorite parts of that particular suburb is Lake Pflugerville. You can take kayaks out, you can go fishing, you can go stand-up paddleboarding. It's really kind of a neat draw to the neighborhoods that are built surrounding that lake. I actually helped some clients recently relocate from Florida to the Austin area, and they worked remote. So they didn't have to worry too much about commute times. They had to be in the office a few days a week, maybe at most, but they could get a house out in Pflugerville and not have to worry about hopping on I-35 or any of the toll roads every single day. And we got them a house just down the street from Lake Pflugerville, and they absolutely love it. They get to get out on the water, they get to take a lunch break and go for a hike around the lake. It's just, it's a cool little vibe out there. Now, Round Rock, on the other hand, has a cultural identity all of its own. It's got a really, really cool downtown area on Main Street. You're gonna have restaurants, music venues, bars, even some nightlife. So it definitely has its own vibe. If you ask somebody that lives in Pflugerville where they're from, they're gonna say they're from Austin. But if you ask somebody that lives in Round Rock where they're from, they are proudly likely going to tell you, I'm from Round Rock, Texas. And that's just kind of the difference. The other Pflugerville seems like a little bit of a suburb, and Round Rock kind of seems like it's its own separate place from the city of Austin. As we're going over these different areas, keep these questions in the back of your mind. What is it that you really have in your future goals? Do you want walkability? Do you want a really fun lifestyle? Do you want space or a yard? What's your commute gonna look like? Are you really, really hyper-focused on schools? My advice to most people is don't focus on the schools only, because the last thing we want to have happen is you're chasing a school district rating or a campus in particular, and you end up settling on the home, the area, and you end up not really enjoying your day-to-day life because you don't like the area that you landed in. I always tell people to find an area that they like first, and there's likely an address there that feeds into a school that your kids and your family are going to be happy at. All right, continuing around the map, let's go east to the Del Valle ISD. Del Valle looks a little bit rough on paper, but again, it comes down to that granular campus by campus level. The overall ISD gets a D rating on niche.com, but it varies a lot campus to campus. So if affordability and potential future upside and equity and appreciation matter a lot to you, then Del Valle could be something to consider, but it's definitely something that you want to look at very carefully and talk with an expert and make sure that you're making a smart decision. The Del Valle area is admittedly growing really, really quickly, so it could be a good time to get in early if you're looking for a good investment. So let's talk about why lifestyle plus school district is the actual winning equation here. So don't just shop by the district label, right? Shop by the areas that actually fit you, the vibe you're going for, the lifestyle you want, and then start diving into the schools to find something that works for you and your family. You don't want to end up somewhere that you're not happy day to day, right? You spend most of your living life at home and in the surrounding areas immediately outside of your home. So the last thing that we want to have happen is for you to just get hyper-focused on a specific school and a specific rating, and then end up not really enjoying your day-to-day life because you didn't think about what your area is like. What does your daily life look like when you go for a walk, when you go to the parks, when you go out to dinner? You want to enjoy those things just as much as you want your kids to have a good education. So let's get together and make sure that you're happy with both the schools and your Tuesdays and your weekends so that you can make a smart, informed move to the city of Austin. So as I promised, let's get into the step-by-step guide of how to actually find this information and what I walk through my clients in before we fall in love with the home. So what you're gonna wanna do is open up 3 tabs on your computer. You're gonna go to these websites and you are going to run either the campus and or the independent school district on each of these websites. You've got niche.com, which is great for a general overview, and you can even review things like parent ratings, which is really cool. You've got greatschools.org, which is great for campus-to-campus comparisons. And then you've got txschools.gov, where you can actually review the official report cards for each campus. And if you want to go even a little bit further, you can even open the ISD's specific website, and that'll give you a 4th option to be able to really get a big cohesive picture of what the school districts look like, what addresses feed into what schools, what the campus by campus comparisons look like, and make this informed bigger picture decision. And that's exactly how I help my clients, again, go from I heard to I actually know and understand now. If you want a little bit of one-on-one guidance and you're interested in more information on the schools, what the general Austin vibe is in different neighborhoods around the area, or anything like that, I actually make these videos for the opportunity and the chance to connect with people just like you and help them make a smart move to the Austin area. So don't be shy. My number's on the screen. You can call or text me. You can even email me. And in the meantime, you can get your relocation guide. And don't forget to subscribe. I release new videos just like this every single week. Until next time.